I bid you welcome.
I welcome you to my house.
Welcome to my house.
Welcome to my home.
Hello Horror Hounds, welcome to my horror house in anticipation tomorrow of seeing the new Candyman movie. I'm reacquainting myself with the Candyman sequels that already exist. Yesterday we had a look at Candyman 2 and today it's the turn of Candyman 3, Candyman Day of the Dead. In Candyman 2 our protagonist was Annie, a descendant of Daniel Robitaille, the Candyman. And we follow that generational theme into the third movie with her daughter, Caroline, now about 25 years old. The movie's set 25 years after part 2, which means it's set in 2020. Caroline is the great-great-granddaughter of Daniel Robitaille, and Caroline, whom she's named after, the daughter of the wealthy gentleman who hired Robitaille to paint her portrait, and they did much more than that. They had a kid together. It got him killed. Turned him into Candyman. Long story. Doesn't matter. We start off the movie with another recap as to the myth and origin of Robitaille and Candyman to get everyone up to speed. Caroline is played by Baywatch alumni Donna D'Errico, and she is an artist working in Los Angeles who wants to put on an exhibition of her great-great-grandfather's works to sort of rehabilitate his memory and remind people that he was a real person who was brutally killed but was an artist, an educated gentleman, and this exhibition is designed to do that. The gallery owner, however, wants to exploit the Candyman myth as a way of promoting his own gallery, and he believes that it's a win-win. Use the Candyman to get people in, and then she can present her pro-Daniel Robitaille argument. During the exhibition, she stands foursquare against this Candyman nonsense and makes her case for Daniel and says, naturally, I don't believe in Candyman, it's all nonsense. And she gets challenged, well, if you don't believe it, here's a mirror, say his name 5 times into it, and we're off. This, I think, is the basis for what could have been a really interesting exploration into the duality of Robitaille, the idea of the myths, urban legends, and how the truth can get distorted over time, and the memory of Robitaille, the man, has been twisted into this monster with a hook for a hand. Do we get all of these interesting explorations of that, especially now that her descendant herself is an artist and may have some insight perhaps into that creative aspect, that sort of duality? No, we don't get any kind of interesting exploration into that at all. Are you mad? This is Candyman 3. This is a turgid, cheap little waste of time of a movie, an absolute waste of Tony Todd's talents, and a waste of potential for a character as rich and strong as the Candyman's. I think it's testament to how good Clive Barker's original source material is and how excellent Bernard Rose's original film is that now, somewhat 22 years after part 3 is out, I'm interested in a new take, a reverential take, maybe an intelligent, hopefully, take on this character. There's so much you can do with Candyman, and this film doesn't bother with any of it. Instead, we get a tired old retread, only cheaper and less interesting yet again. So previously we were in New Orleans around Mardi Gras. Now we're in Los Angeles in the build-up to the Day of the Dead festival. I don't know what it is within these sequels, Candyman's affiliation to these festivals. It's got absolutely nothing to do with him, but here we are. It's just an absolute lack of imagination. Let's just glom onto another festival, Day of the Dead. Yeah, that sounds spooky. We'll have that. We don't have another African American community. This time we have our white blonde protagonist being a sort of tourist in the Latino community, but to all intents and purposes, it's the same thing. She calls on him. Candyman kills lots of people around her. She gets embroiled with the police who suspect her of the murders, so she's on the run at the same time trying to find a way of defeating Candyman herself before absolutely everyone's killed and Candyman can claim her for unspecified reasons. Candyman's motivation in part 2 was a little hazy. In part 3, it's not there at all. I don't understand what Candyman is about in part 3, and that's just a holdover from some of the holes in part 2. Candyman, in Candyman, is a creature that exists in urban legend, and as long as his story is told, he continues. He is immortal. And every once in a while, and this is taken from The Forbidden, the source material, Clive Barker's short story, every once in a while, he has to do something grand to keep people scared and to keep them whispering. And he chooses a victim. Be my victim, he says to Helen Lyle throughout the first film, Virginia Madsen. Be my victim. He's going to create another scare story, another spooky story, a story of this white woman that came to Cabrini Green asking questions about the Candyman, and look what happened to her. From part 2 onwards, he seems to be on a mission to kill all his descendants for unspecified reasons, other than, oh, they'll tell stories about your death as well and you'll be immortal. I don't know whether he's just planning a post-mortem grand family reunion. That's a lot of urban myth to spread around. He says at one point to Caroline, our stories shall be one destiny, one family, one blood. What does that mean? Poor old Tony Todd is asked to spout an awful lot of shite throughout this movie, oftentimes in voiceover, over a picture of some Candyman graffiti, which strongly leads me to believe that even these obtuse sayings of Candyman brought in afterwards, looped afterwards, oh shit, he really doesn't have any motivation. Let's try and give him a couple of scenes. It happens twice at least where he's just talking absolute gibberish over some Candyman graffiti to make it sound like he's actually working towards something. I mean, what is utterly beyond me. He has moved so far beyond killing anyone who summons him in the mirror now that his original MO is just out the window. He just seems to have some sort of obsession with his family lineage, which is exactly the same plug hole the Halloween sequels drained themselves down. Caroline not only has visions of Candyman, but she also sees her mother as well, Annie, the protagonist from the previous film. Again, this could have been interesting. This could have tied us back into the supernatural Helen who appears at the end of the first film. We would have at least had one of these protagonists appearing, post-death as another supernatural figure. But no, we don't explore that. It's just, she's just there for sort of shock value, and at the end of a very muddled final act, some sort of spirit guide giving a hint to Caroline that she has to destroy the myth. If people aren't telling the story, then that's how you kill Candyman. Although, there are as many ways of killing Candyman as there are sequels now. This time she has to destroy his paintings. In the previous one, it was a mirror. I mean, by this point, it's all garbled garbage. The ultimate sin is that it's boring. It's not scary. There's no tension. It's so bright. It looks like this is something made for daytime TV. It looks like a daytime TV soap, the way it's lit and the way it's shot. There's no interesting angles. There's no interesting camera movements. There's no shadow. There's no depth. What you do get is 3 pairs of naked breasts. 4 if you include Erico's side boob. So there's that, and even that is turgid. Even that isn't titillating. It's not interesting to look, some boobs. How interesting. Right at the very end, we're introduced to Candyman's new congregation, a congregation of the faithful who totally bought into this legend and want to keep the myth alive. It's actually quite hilarious that there are a bunch of white sort of goth punk wannabes who summon Candyman, and then of course he tears straight through all of them. There's a little bit of titillation there. That tickles me. But Candyman here is so much more Freddy than Candyman. The entire film starts off with Caroline in a dream sequence with the Candyman trying to get her to remember and trying to get her to... I mean, it's so Freddy. The ending, her thinking that Candyman is defeated and then the hook comes out of the mirror again, that's so Freddy. The trouble with turning Candyman into Freddy is that Candyman just does the one thing. He appears behind you, he grabs you, he puts his hook through you, and he splits you in half. And that's it. And if that's all you've got, at least Freddy's imaginative. At least he has flair. At least Jason uses different tools. I mean, this is the level we're getting to. If you're going to turn Candyman into this Freddy or Jason level killer, he gets really boring really, really quickly. If you can't put something interesting in his mouth, if you can't give him an interesting motivation out of the riches from the origins of this that you've got, you really have no business playing with this character. I think now, after 3 movies of white blonde women going into sort of deprived areas and meddling around, I get the curiosity killed the cat angle. I even quite like the critique of the so-called white saviour trope from the first film, although the first film is so well reasoned and thought through and thoughtful and layered. I completely understand now why in the 21st century someone like Jordan Peele and director Nia DaCosta say, I would really actually like a Candyman story told from an African-American perspective. Can they bring something interesting and worthwhile to the myth? Are they going to approach it intelligently and with reverence? I think they are. Are they going to sit back on their laurels and just have Candyman go, I'm the whispers in the classroom, I'm the writing on the wall, here's my hook. I hope they will do more than that. I'm going to see the film tomorrow. I'll let you know what I think. What I can say now, I think, without fear of looking like a fool in 24 hours' time, is that it cannot be worse than Candyman 3 Day of the Dead. I'm the whispers in the classroom, I'm the writing on the wall, here's my hook.